You ever have one of those moments where something small happens, but deep down, you just know it's going to change everything? Yeah. That moment for me started with a knock on the door. It had been exactly 3 days since I moved into that apartment. New city, new job, new life. And honestly, I wasn't loving it. The place was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels empty. Like the walls are still getting used to you being there. I didn't know anyone. Didn't have friends nearby. Work was stressful. And every evening just felt like waiting for time to pass. That night, I was sitting on my couch, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, half watching some random show I wasn't even paying attention to, and then knock knock. I froze for a second. I wasn't expecting anyone. I mean, who would I even expect? For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, but then it came again. Knock, knock, I sighed, got up, and walked toward the door. And I swear, I had no idea that opening that door would change everything. I pulled it open, and there she was, standing there, like she didn't belong in this quiet, dull hallway. She was holding a small box. Cookies, I think. And she looked just slightly nervous, like she wasn't used to doing this kind of thing. Her hair fell softly over her shoulders, slightly messy, but in a way that looked natural, real, not perfect. Better than perfect. Hi, she said, giving a small, almost shy smile. I'm your new neighbor, apartment 3B. Her voice was soft, careful, like she didn't want to take up too much space. I just moved in, and I thought I should say hello. For a second, I just stood there, not because I didn't understand what she said, but because I wasn't expecting her. Yeah, I said, snapping back, I'm in 3A. Smooth, real smooth. She smiled, a little more clearly amused, I figured. She said, unless I knocked on the wrong door, which would be really embarrassing. I chuckled. No, you got the right one. She held out the box. I made cookies, or tried to, said this is either a welcoming gift or a warning. I laughed and took it from her. Well, I guess I'm about to find out. There was a small pause, not awkward, just unsure, like both of us were deciding what to do next. And then, somehow, we both spoke at the same time. Do you? We stopped and laughed. You go first, I said. She shook her head. No, you, okay. Do you want to come in? The moment I said it, I wondered if it sounded too forward, but she didn't hesitate. Yeah, she said softly. I'd like that. And just like that, she stepped into my life. My apartment wasn't anything special. A couch, a coffee table, a TV that was a little too big for the space. Boxes, still half unpacked. But somehow, the moment she walked in, it didn't feel empty anymore. We sat down, and what was supposed to be a quick hello turned into something else entirely. We talked about the city, about moving, about terrible landlords and weird neighbors. She told me her name was Emily, and I don't know what it was, but talking to her felt easy, like we skipped the awkward stage completely. She laughed at my dumb jokes. I listened to her stories, like they actually mattered. Time just disappeared. At some point, I glanced at the clock. An hour had passed. An hour, and it felt like 10 minutes. Wow, she said, following my gaze. I didn't realize it was this late. Yeah, I said. Time kind of moved fast. She smiled slightly. Yeah, it did. There was that pause again, but this time, it felt different, softer, warmer. I should probably go, she said, standing up slowly. I nodded, even though part of me didn't want her to. Yeah, probably. She walked toward the door, then turned back for a second. This was nice, she said. Yeah, I replied. It really was. And just like that, she was gone. The apartment went quiet again, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet this time. It felt like something had been left behind, and I didn't even realize how true that was until a few minutes later. I walked back into the living room, setting the cookie box on the table, and that's when I saw it. Her phone, sitting right there on my coffee table. I stared at it for a second, then laughed under my breath. Guess she'll be back. I picked it up. The screen was black, locked, silent. But somehow, it didn't feel like just a phone. It felt like a question. I set it back down exactly where it was. I didn't touch it again, didn't unlock it, Didn't even try. Not because I wasn't curious. Because I was, but something about her made me not want to cross that line. About 10 minutes later. Knock knock. I smiled before even opening the door. I already knew if I opened it. And there she was again. This time, a little more out of breath. A little more flustered. "I think I left my phone here," she said quickly. I held it up, looking for this. She exhaled in relief. "Yes, thank you." As she reached for it, our fingers brushed, just for a second, but it was enough. She paused, just slightly, then looked up at me, and something in her expression changed. Her eyes searched mine, like she was looking for something, or trying to confirm something. Then, she asked, "You didn't look at my photos, did you?" The question hit differently than I expected. It wasn't casual. It wasn't joking. It was serious. I shook my head. "No," I said honestly, "I didn't." She held my gaze for a moment longer, like she was trying to decide if she believed me. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Good," she said quietly, but there was something in her voice. Relief. Yes, but also something else. Something deeper, like those photos meant more than just pictures. She held the phone close to her chest for a second, then gave me a small smile. "Thanks again," she said. "Any time," I replied. She turned to leave, then paused, just for a moment, like she wanted to say something else, but didn't. And then she walked away, back to her apartment, back, behind that door. And just like that, she was gone again. I stood there for a second, before closing mine, leaning lightly against it, and I couldn't stop thinking about one thing. Not the cookies, not the conversation, not even the way she smiled, but that question, "You didn't look at my photos, did you?" Because now, I wasn't just curious. I was wondering, what was on that phone that she didn't want me to see? And why did it feel like that answer was going to change everything? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more emotional and romantic stories like this. You know that feeling, when something small keeps replaying in your head. Not loud, not obvious, but persistent. Like a quiet question that refuses to go away. For me, it was her voice. "You didn't look at my photos, did you?" I should have forgotten about it. I tried to. I really did. But the way she asked it, that wasn't just casual curiosity. That was fear. And now, whether I liked it or not, I was curious. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I had to, but because my mind wouldn't shut off. I kept thinking about her. Emily, the way she smiled, the way she hesitated. The way her expression changed when she asked that question. There was something there. Something. She didn't say dot, and for some reason, I wanted to understand it. I got ready for work, grabbed my keys, and stepped out into the hallway, and that's when I saw her, standing near her door, like she had stepped out too for a second. We both paused, then she smiled, and just like that, everything felt normal again. "Hey," she said, a little more relaxed than last night. "Hey," I replied. Good morning," she echoed. There was a small silence, not awkward, just careful. Then she tilted her head slightly. "Thanks again, for last night, for the phone." She nodded, and for not being weird about it, I smirked. I try my best to be a decent human being. She laughed, and there it was again. That effortless connection. "Good," she said, "because I'd hate to have a creepy neighbor." "Wow," I said. "So I passed the test." "Barely," she teased. I placed a hand over my chest. "That hurts," she smiled, but there was something softer behind it now. Something real. We started walking down the hallway. Together, same direction, same pace, like it just made sense. "So," I said casually, "settling in, okay?" "Yeah," she replied. "It's not bad. Still feels a little new." "I get that," I said. "I've only been here a few days myself." She looked at me, slightly surprised. "Really? I thought you'd been here longer." "Nope," I said, still figuring everything out. She nodded slowly. "Same." We stepped outside the building, and the morning air hit us. Cool, fresh, quiet. "Do you have work today?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "Unfortunately, same here." There was that pause again. That moment where you either say goodbye or say something else. something that changes things. And before I could overthink it, "Do you want to grab coffee later?" I asked. Smooth. Or at least, I hoped it was. She looked at me for a second. Not surprised, just considering. Then she smiled. "Yeah," she said. "I'd like that." And just like that, we had a plan. The day felt longer than usual. Not because it was busy, but because I kept checking the time, waiting, thinking about later, thinking about her, and thinking about that question again. By the time evening came, I was already at the cafe. It was one of those small places with warm lighting, quiet music, and just enough noise to feel alive. The kind of place where conversations matter. I saw her the moment she walked in, and I swear, for a second, everything else just faded. She looked different, more relaxed, more open. Her eyes found mine, and she smiled like she was genuinely happy to see me. Not polite, not forced, real. "Hey," she said, as she sat down. "Hey," I replied. And just like last night, it was easy. We talked about everything, work, life. Random memories. She told me about the last city she lived in. I told her about why I moved. There were jokes. There were quiet moments. There were those little glances that lasted just a second too long. And at some point, I realized something. I wasn't just enjoying the conversation. I was enjoying her, then. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly, and just as fast, she flipped it face down on the table. I noticed, of course I did, but I didn't say anything. Not right away. We kept talking, but now there was that small shift again, that tiny layer of tension, and eventually, I couldn't ignore it. "You're really protective of that thing," I said casually, nodding toward her phone. She raised an eyebrow. "Wouldn't you be?" "Depends," I said. "What's on it?" She smirked slightly. "Maybe just embarrassing selfies. Or secrets," I replied. There it was, that word, secrets. And just like that, the air changed. Not dramatically, but enough. She looked at me, really looked at me. And for a second, I thought I pushed too far. But then she said quietly, "Everyone has secrets." Her voice wasn't defensive. It wasn't cold. It was honest. And maybe a little tired. I leaned back slightly. "Yeah," I said. "I guess they do." There was a pause, but this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like we had just stepped into something deeper, something real. We stayed there for a while longer, talking, laughing, letting that moment pass naturally. And eventually, it was time to leave. We walked back together. Same path, same quiet streets. But now, everything felt different. More familiar, more connected. When we reached her door, she stopped, turned to face me, and for a second, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "You're not curious." I frowned slightly. "About what?" She held up her phone just a little. "My photos." There it was again, that question, but this time, it felt different. Less fear, more curiosity. Like she was testing something. I looked at her, really looked at her, and then I said, "I'm curious about you." She blinked, not expecting that. "Not your phone," I continued. "Not what's in it. Not what you're hiding." I stepped a little closer. "I want to know you." There was silence. But not the empty kind. The kind that feels full, heavy, important. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, there was no guard, no hesitation, no distance. Just her. "You're different," she said quietly. I smiled slightly. I've been told that. She laughed softly, then looked down for a second, before meeting my eyes again. "Good, different," she added. And something about the way she said it stayed with me. She opened her door, then paused again. "Good night," she said. "Good night," I replied. She stepped inside. The door closed, and I stood there for a moment, thinking about her, about that look in her eyes, about what she wasn't saying. Because now, this wasn't just curiosity anymore. It wasn't just about a phone, or photos, or secrets. This was something else, something deeper, something I wasn't planning, but somehow couldn't walk away from. And the craziest part, I had a feeling whatever was on that phone was only the beginning. There's a moment in every story when curiosity turns into something else, something deeper, something you can't ignore anymore. For me, that moment started the night she said, "You're different." I didn't know exactly what she meant, but I felt it. And from that point on, everything between us started to change. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, natural, like two people slowly stepping closer without even realizing it. Over the next few days, Emily and I started seeing each other more. Not planned, not scheduled. It just happened. Sometimes she'd knock on my door, late in the evening. "Are you busy?" she'd asked. And even if I wasn't anymore. Other times, I'd find her sitting on the hallway floor, outside her apartment, scrolling through her phone like she was waiting for something. Or maybe, waiting for someone. "Bad day?" I'd ask. She'd shrug. Something like that. And somehow, we'd end up back in my apartment again, talking, laughing, sharing pieces of ourselves. Little by little, we started cooking together, which, to be honest, mostly turned into arguing about recipes and laughing when something went wrong. She made fun of my terrible taste in music. I made fun of her obsession with late-night snacks. It felt normal, comfortable, like we had known each other longer than we actually had. But even with all of that, there was still something she kept to herself. Not obvious, not loud, but present. Like a door she hadn't opened yet, and I didn't push it. Because whatever it was, I knew she'd tell me when she was ready. Or at least, I hoped she would one night. Everything shifted. Again, we were sitting on the couch, same spot as always. The room was dim, lit only by a soft lamp in the corner. There was a movie playing, but neither of us was really watching it. She was quiet, quieter than usual, and I could tell something was on her mind. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just kept staring at the screen. Then finally, "Can I ask you something?" Her voice was soft. "Careful, of course," I said. She turned slightly toward me. "If you had looked," she paused, "would it have changed things?" I didn't need her to explain. I knew exactly what she meant. Her phone, her photos, her secrets. I leaned back a little, thinking, "Depends," I said honestly. "On what?" she asked. "On what I saw." She nodded, slowly, like she expected that answer. "Fair," she whispered. There was a silence after that, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like something was building, like she was standing at the edge of something, trying to decide if she should jump. Then she took a deep breath, the kind of breath people take when they're about to do something that scares them. "Okay," she said, "and then, I'm going to show you." I frowned slightly. "Emily, you don't have to." "I want to," she interrupted gently. Her eyes met mine, and this time, there was no hesitation, just determination. She reached for her phone, unlocked it, and handed it to me. "Go to the gallery for a second." I didn't move. Not because I didn't want to, but because I understood what this meant. This wasn't just about photos anymore. This was trust, and trust isn't something people give easily. "You sure?" I asked quietly. She nodded. Double quotes. "Yeah." I took the phone slowly, carefully, like it mattered, because it did. I opened the gallery at first. Everything looked normal. Selfies, random. Pictures, food. Sunsets, the kind of things everyone has on their phone. I almost felt relieved, like maybe this wasn't as deep as I thought. But then, I kept scrolling, and that's when everything changed. The photos started to shift. Different places, different outfits, different versions of her in one picture. She looked confident, bold, almost fearless. In another, she looked tired, worn down like she had been carrying something heavy for too long. I frowned slightly, trying to understand, trying to connect the pieces. And then, I saw him, a guy standing next to her, his arm around her shoulders. Both of them, smiling, happy, genuine. I scrolled again, more pictures. The same guy. Different moments, different places, closer, more intimate. There was no confusion, no guessing. Whoever he wasn't just a friend. I felt something shift inside me. Not jealousy, not exactly, just awareness. Like I had just stepped into a part of her life that I wasn't part of. I slowly looked up at her. She was already watching me, waiting, reading my reaction. "That was my fiancé," she said softly. Her voice didn't break, but it wasn't strong either. It was somewhere in between, honest, real. "He cheated," she continued, "lied and left. Right before our wedding." The words landed heavy. Not dramatic, not loud, just real. I didn't know what to say. And for once, silence felt like the right choice. She looked down at her hands. "I kept the photos," she said quietly. "Not because I miss him." She shook her head slightly. "But because I don't want to forget who I was." There was something powerful in that. Something raw. "I was happy," she added. "I trusted someone completely." Her voice softened even more. "And I was wrong." That part, that hit different. Because it wasn't just about him, it was about trust. And what happens when it breaks. "That's why I didn't want you to see," she said. I looked back at the phone. Then gently, I locked it and placed it on the table. "I don't care," I said. She looked up at me, confused. "What?" "I don't care about who you were," I explained. I leaned slightly forward. "I care about who you are now." There was a pause, but this time, it wasn't uncertain. It wasn't heavy. It was clear. She searched my face, like she was looking for doubt, for judgment, for anything that might prove her fears right. But there was nothing there. Just honesty, just me. And slowly, I saw it. That moment when something inside her shifted. The walls she had built started to fall, not all at once, but enough. Her eyes softened, her shoulders relaxed. And for the first time since I met her, she didn't look guarded. She looked free. "You really mean that?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," I said. "I do." Another pause. Then she smiled. Not the playful smile, not the polite one. A real one. The kind that reaches your eyes. The kind that says something without words. And in that moment, everything changed. Because now, there were no more secrets between us. No more hidden layers. No more distance. Just two people, sitting in a quiet room, sharing something real, and maybe, just maybe, starting something neither of us planned. If you're enjoying this emotional story, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more powerful romantic stories like this. Some moments don't feel important until you realize they changed everything. Not because something dramatic happened, but because something shifted quietly, irreversibly. That single quotes as what this was. The night everything between me and Emily stopped being just something and became real. After she told me the truth about her past, things didn't go back to normal. They moved forward, faster than either of us expected, but not in a reckless way. In a way that felt natural, like we had already crossed a line. Without even noticing, we started spending almost every evening together. Not because we planned it, but because being apart started to feel strange, like something was missing. She'd show up with snacks. I'd pretend I wasn't waiting for her. We'd sit on the couch. Same spot, same quiet room. But now, there was something different in the air. Something heavier, warmer, more intense. The conversations got deeper, less surface level, more real. We talked about fears, about trust, about what it feels like to lose something you thought would last forever. And slowly, we stopped pretending that this was casual, because at one night, it all came to the surface. We were sitting together again, a movie playing in the background, soft light filling the room, her head resting gently on my shoulder. And for once, neither of us was talking. Not because we didn't have anything to say, but because we didn't need to. The silence felt right, comfortable, safe. Then, suddenly she spoke. "Do you ever think about timing?" Her voice was quiet, almost like she wasn't sure she should ask. I turned my head slightly. "All the time," I said. She shifted a little, sitting up just enough to look at me, like, what would have happened if we met earlier? There it was. That question, the kind that doesn't just ask about the past, but about everything. I thought about it for a second, then shook my head slightly. Maybe it wouldn't have worked. She frowned a little. "Why not?" "Because we wouldn't be the same people," I said. I looked at her. Maybe we wouldn't be ready. She held my gaze, searching, trying to understand. "And now?" she asked softly. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached up and gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. A simple gesture, but it felt like more than that. It felt intentional. "Now feels different," I said quietly. Her breath caught slightly. I could see it, feel it. That moment when emotions start to rise, and there's no going back. There was a pause, but not the kind that pulls you apart, the kind that pulls you closer. "I'm scared," she whispered. The words were barely audible, but they carried weight. "Real weight of what?" I asked gently. She looked down for a second, then back at me. "Of this," she said, "of feeling something again." That made sense. More than she probably realized. Because when you've been hurt like that, feeling again isn't exciting. It's terrifying. I nodded slowly. "You don't have to rush anything," I said. My voice calm, steady. Double quotes. "We can take it slow." She studied my face, like she was trying to read between the lines, trying to figure out if I really meant it. Then she asked, "What if I don't want to take it slow?" That was the moment. The line. The turning point. Everything before that question was safe. Everything after wouldn't be. I felt it, that shift, that decision, but I didn't rush. I didn't force it. I just looked at her, gave her space, gave her time to change her mind if she wanted to. Slowly, I leaned in, not all the way, just enough, close enough for her to feel it, close enough for her to decide. And for a second, time stopped. Everything went quiet. The world outside disappeared. There was just us. Just that moment. And then she closed the distance. Her lips met mine, soft, hesitant, careful. Like she was testing something fragile, something new, but also something she hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't move at first. Just let it happen. Let her take control of that moment. Because this wasn't about me. This was about trust. And slowly, the hesitation faded. The kiss deepened. Not rushed, not aggressive, just real, honest. When we finally pulled back, we didn't move far. Her forehead rested against mine, our breathing uneven, but calm, connected. Double quotes. "You still didn't judge me," she whispered. I smiled slightly. "I told you," I said softly, "I'm not interested in your past." I paused. "I'm interested in you." She closed her eyes for a second, like she was letting those words sink in. Really sink in, because sometimes it's not the big moments that matter. It's the simple ones, the honest ones, the ones that make you feel safe. When she opened her eyes again, there was something new there. Not fear, not hesitation, something stronger, something certain. This time, she believed me, completely. And in that moment, we crossed the line. Not just physically, but emotionally. There was no going back to just neighbors. No going back to just friends. This was something else now. Something deeper. Something real. And the craziest part? It didn't feel complicated. It didn't feel risky. It felt right. We stayed like that for a while. Close, quiet, just existing in that moment. No words needed, no explanations. Because sometimes, when something is real, you don't need to question it. You just feel it, and that's enough. There's something strange about the morning after everything changes. You expect it to feel different. Awkward, complicated, uncertain. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it feels calm, like everything finally makes sense. That's how it felt when I woke up the next morning. For a second, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting the silence settle. Not the empty silence I used to feel in this apartment. This was different. This was peaceful. Then I heard something, a soft sound coming from the kitchen. I sat up slightly, and that's when I remembered. Emily. A small smile formed without me even realizing it. I got up and walked toward the kitchen, and there she was, standing by the counter, making coffee like she had been there 100 times before. She was wearing one of my shirts, slightly oversized, her hair loosely tied back, sunlight pouring in through the window, lighting up the entire room. And for a moment, I just stood there, watching her, taking it in, because something about that scene felt like home. "Good morning," she said softly, without turning around. I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't even look." She smiled slightly. "I could feel you staring." I laughed under my breath. "Was I that obvious?" "Very," she said, turning toward me. And just like that, there it was again. That connection, that ease, that feeling that this wasn't new. It just felt new. "Coffee?" she asked, holding up a cup. "Always," I said, walking closer. She handed it to me, our fingers brushing again. But this time, there was no hesitation, no tension, just familiarity, comfort. We stood there for a moment, sipping coffee in silence, but not the kind of silence that needs to be filled, the kind that feels complete on its own. "So," I said eventually, "how are you feeling?" She tilted her head slightly. "About what?" "Everything," I said. She thought about it for a second, then gave a small, honest smile. "Good," she said. "Better than I expected. That's a good sign." "Yeah," she replied softly. There was a pause. Then, suddenly, she set her coffee down and picked up her phone from the counter. She walked toward me, slowly, deliberately, and held it out. "Here." I frowned slightly. "What's this?" "My phone," she said. I smirked. I figured that part out. She rolled her eyes slightly. No locks, no hesitation, no fear. Her voice was steady, confident. "You can look at anything." I looked at the phone, then back at her. She wasn't joking. She wasn't testing me. She was serious. And that meant something. A lot. Because this wasn't about the phone anymore. This was about trust. Real trust. The kind that people don't give easily. I looked back down at the phone for a second. Then gently, I pushed her hand back, toward her. "I don't need to," I said. She blinked, caught off guard. "Why not?" she asked. I smiled slightly. "Because trust isn't about checking," I said. "It's about not needing to." There was silence. But this time, it was different. She just stood there, looking at me, processing, understanding, and slowly, I saw it. That moment when everything clicked, when her fears, her doubts, her past, finally loosened their grip. Her eyes softened, her shoulders relaxed, and then, she smiled. A real one. Not guarded, not careful, just free. "That might be the most attractive thing you've said so far," she said. I laughed. "I've said better." She crossed her arms playfully. "Debatable." I stepped a little closer. Wow, tough crowd. She didn't move away, didn't create distance. Instead, she stepped closer to closing that space between us. "Maybe," she said softly, "but I like it." There was a pause, a quiet moment, but not empty, full, real. "Now what?" I asked. She looked at me for a second, then wrapped her arms around me, slowly, gently, resting her head against my chest. "Now," she whispered, "we see where this goes." Her voice was calm, but there was something strong behind it, something certain. "No fear," she added quietly. I nodded, wrapping my arms around her, holding her just a little tighter. "No fear," I repeated. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. This wasn't built on secrets. It wasn't built on assumptions. It wasn't built on pretending to be someone else. This was real. To people, two past, two stories, choosing to move forward, together, and maybe that's what matters most. Not what someone hides, not what they've been through, but what they choose when they stand in front of you. Emily had her reasons to be guarded, to be careful, to protect herself, but she chose to trust me, and me. I chose her, not because she was perfect, not because everything was easy, but because she was real. And sometimes, that's more than enough. We stood there for a while, not talking, not moving, just holding on to that moment. Because, deep down, we both knew this wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of something neither of us expected, but both of us needed. And maybe, just maybe, something that would last. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more emotional, romantic stories like this.